and welcome along to the third episode of The Creative Woman Within. And I'm really honoured today to have a fantastic artist come and join me today. So far I've told you my story, but the idea behind the podcast is to invite other women on who are on their own creative journeys and to tell their stories as well and inspire everybody. So I'd like to give a really warm welcome to Lou Earnshaw. So hi, Lou, sorry.
That's all right.
I just said, shall I introduce you as Louise or Lou? You got both.
It's not a problem. I respond to both, but Louise is a bit more serious.
We'll go with Lou. Okay, so it'd be really lovely if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you developed your creativity. How old were you, when you really found that passion for art and actually what you do as well?
So for me, to be honest, I can't even really remember it. As a very young person, I struggled considerably with reading as a child. And so art, creativity, making things, designing things, whatever it was that was to avoid having to read anything was where it really came from.
Okay.
And I was only chatting to my dad about it the other day that I can remember my mum trying to get me to read, elements of storybooks, probably at the age of 5. And I just used to describe the pictures. I was obsessed with the pictures rather than the actual reading because, I struggled pretty much throughout my whole education with reading. So I think it stems from that. I think my fascination with what the pictures, my mum used to give me cardboard boxes. I was always after cardboard boxes. Can I make something? I was making houses for teddy bears. I was making clothes. My dad is a trained joiner, and I used to spend quite a bit of time in his workshop with him, just playing with wood, making things. My mum was a machinist, so I come from quite a practical household, and she taught us, myself and my sister, to use the sewing machine. And I think just being surrounded by things that we're making rather than more of the what we traditionally think as academic things were just really what I was kind of involved in all the time. So I think it stems from that. It was definitely an avoidance from having to do anything that was maybe more academic.
But
Which
sorry, I was just going to say it's funny though, because it's funny how those things guide us, and I always think everything happens for a reason, and actually your avoidance tactic has put you on such a beautiful journey that perhaps if you hadn't have had that avoidance tactic, you would never have discovered.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, a little bit about the fact I was an art teacher for 20 years.
Yeah.
And when I trained to be an art teacher, I remember being on like a CPD day or something like that at school. And they asked us to stand, all the staff, they asked us to stand in the order of when we'd learnt to read, because it was a day about literacy and the importance of literacy. And most of us that were art or design technology or more of the practical subjects were definitely later on in life that we kind of developed that, I suppose, ability to read or enjoyment of reading. And at the time when I was a young person, I was so anxious about that. I was conscious of the fact that I was behind my peers. But now as an adult, I feel so I suppose privileged that I had that because I wasn't able to engage in that part of education. I found that quite difficult. My outlet was drawing, painting, colouring, making. And I think that's really created the foundations of what I do now. And it's actually a really big part of what I do in workshops and I still work with young people, and it's a really big thing for me that
Yeah.
is just engaging.
And then thinking about it, because actually there's so many transferable skills that come from art that, it's like the perseverance, it's thinking outside the box. And if things don't quite work out, it's the problem solving aspect. And also, I mean, I used to be a primary school teacher, and I remember children, in reception in year 1 when they were learning to read, And some children were very fluent reading, but actually they didn't have the comprehension of what was going on. And those children that sort of used the pictures and they talked about the pictures more had a better understanding, perhaps weren't quite as fluent, but actually developed a better understanding. So actually, that's the creative side of it is so important with reading as well, even though maybe it was a little bit later on. It's such an important element of it. And the skills that you've got from the creative side are just massive for life, really, aren't they?
They are, and it actually works with you. You're aware that I don't just create art, I'm an outdoor instructor as well.
Yeah.
And having been a teacher and going through all those processes of learning about how people learn, up until being a teacher, I never recognized what type of learner I actually am. And all of it stems to that kinesthetic visual learner. A lot of my traits are very much in that field, which work really well in terms of being an outdoor instructor, because I learned from a very young age that I could read a map pretty well, more so than some of my peers. And I think, again, it was that picture. For me, a map is a picture. Some people are scared of the details and confused by what the information is. From a really young age, that was just part of me seeing the world around me. It made sense to me, whereas other people, it's more of a challenge learning that. So there's definitely the fascination with visual things have always been there. And I can remember being on a walk with somebody a few years ago, and I was pointing out shadows casting on surfaces from ferns and things like that. And this guy said, "Do you know, I never see those things, and I only see them when we're walking with you and you point those things out." And
Yeah.
I kind of went away thinking, it is a privilege to be that observant person, but then it's quite sad that other people don't. I didn't realize, because I'm so always seeing all these things, shapes and patterns and buildings, and thinking, "Oh, look at the shape of that tree. That's amazing." But
Yeah.
other people maybe don't see that.
It's
Um,
funny though, because I was one of those people that didn't see those things until I actually had to stop teaching due to my health. And I really do put it down to the fact I was so busy, because as a ex-teacher yourself, the hours that go into like a day in the life of a teacher. And I think sometimes if I went for a walk, it was like I need to get from A to B because I have marking to do or I have this to do, and there's so much else grabbing your attention that you don't actually you were almost blinkered. And I remember when I first was poorly and I was sitting in my garden, couldn't do anything else, and I looked and there was lavender growing there. We'd been here about 7 years at the time. I'd no idea I'd got lavender growing in the garden because I'd been too busy, and that made me really sad. And it was
yeah,
only after I started like putting paint to canvas that we'd go on walks, and I became a nightmare to walk with because people would be talking to me, turn around, I'd be gone, I'd be taking a photograph, or I'd notice, like you said, shadows, patterns, colour, all the colour seemed much more vivid and bright and just really grabbed my attention more than they'd ever done. And
yeah.
people that come on my workshops often say to me, once they've done one, I'm noticing colour so much more now. I'm so much more aware of the different shades of colour, the patterns, the textures, and everything. And I don't know if you find the same with people that, well, you've just said, haven't you? Those that come on
Yeah,
board with you.
I do. I was at the weekend. I was teaching a green sketching workshop, which obviously you're aware of what I do with that. So I lead these workshops that are outside. They're purposely designed to be outside, so that we are learning to observe and take in the natural environment. And obviously, we both believe that being outside in that environment is really good for our well-being and mindfulness.
Yeah,
It definitely is for me. So I do these workshops where I take people out, and we call it doodling because lots of them are a bit more anxious about that word drawing, and that comes with anxiety. So we use that environment as an opportunity to doodle and observe and see things. And the feedback that I had on Sunday straight away from all of the workshops that I do based on that is the fact that people are seeing things they didn't see before. So I did one at Doddington Hall a couple of months ago, and there was a guy there that was a technical drawer. He'd had a career in technical drawing, And he said, but I've just been seeing all these tiny little details, the shapes and the patterns in the tree bark and the tiny little buds. And that was back at the beginning of February when things were only just starting to grow. And he said, I honestly thought this morning that I wouldn't see that much. You know, it's not quite spring yet. He says, but thanks to your guidance, we've seen so much more. And it's such an important part of what I do as a workshop provider like yourself, is I think that really I've recognized in the time that I've been using my creativity to help with anxiety and mental health and well-being. I notice that if I sit in the environment and I sketch, I do notice that my heart rate slows down. Interestingly, I tend to take a few more deep breaths, and I probably never realized that until a few years ago, where I've become more conscious of it. And I'm not purposely doing it, but I notice that I'm doing it. And being able to share that with other people, it doesn't, like you say, the workshops you do, Tracy, are inside, but even people being able to notice the effect it has on them, that drawing process
Yeah.
or painting process, whatever it may be, is, I think, is such an important thing.
It is, and I mean, and then this is one of the reasons, probably the main reason why I've started doing the workshops, is because I didn't make time for myself, which is why I got poorly. And it, you know, people don't realise how busy they are, and we don't make time for being creative. As a general rule, people don't make time for it because actually they feel guilty about sitting down and doodling or painting or whatever, because it seems like a bit of a luxury when there's other things that we should be doing. And I hate the word should, but you know, again, it's all about bringing that sense of calmness, peace, just taking time out from the day to switch off and let the brain just not have to concentrate, really, because you can have a paintbrush in your hand or a pencil in your hand, and you don't have to think too much. You can just be really free with it, and there's no right and no wrong, which is why I love teach, you know, sharing art with people, because it's how people interpret it, and we all see things in different ways.
Yeah.
um, but I don't know about you. Do you get many people saying to you that they can't draw and they can't paint because somebody, when they were younger, told them they couldn't? And so
Yeah,
they,
absolutely.
yeah,
Time after time, most of the workshops that I teach, and you know, I do a variety, so I
yeah,
might do some lino printing, which you don't tend to get that as much with that because it's quite a different technique. So I think people come to that almost feeling happy about the fact they probably haven't experienced it before, and it's a new skill. So this,
yeah,
I think there's a bit less pressure on that. But particularly the drawing ones that I do, the green sketching ones that I do outside, yeah, often people will say, I mean, you get maybe 5 to 8 people on a workshop, and you can guarantee that at least 2 or 3 of them are going to mention that they've had a bad experience. And I talk to them a lot about that during that process. My green sketching workshops, at the very start, I give them a little mini sketchbook and I ask them 5 questions, and I don't ask them to share that openly unless they want to. So it's really for them to reflect on their connection with nature. And I do ask them that question, how do you feel about drawing? And the ones that I had on Sunday, one of them did say midway through the day that he recognizes that he has had a bad experience, maybe at school. It could have been that an adult or a peer has suggested that this is what art should look like and yours doesn't look like that, so therefore you're not good enough. And it stopped him from engaging in it, which is such a shame. And I said to him, but I'm hopefully that type of workshop, I give them little clippets of this. You can literally do a sketch in a minute. We time it and we do a minute sketch. So obviously we have people that say I haven't got time. That's one of the things that I kind of work on. You've got time. And that,
yeah.
and I often say I'm very guilty, even as an artist, of saying, well, actually I should be doing that, or I should be putting the washing on, or whatever it may be. I make the same excuses, and that's coming from an artist. But if we can all try and recognize, like you're saying, the benefit that actually that has, that's really what I'm trying to do, and I know that that's what you're trying to do, and
Yeah.
I really wish that people do, engage in our workshops and go away thinking, actually, Tracy was right, Lou was right. I can spend 5 minutes. I'm allowed to spend 5 minutes
Yeah.
of my day just sketching, doodling, whatever
It's
it might
giving
be.
yourself permission, isn't it? It's giving yourself permission, and to do it in a guilt-free way. And I know a lot of the ladies who come to my, it is mainly ladies actually. There's very few
Yeah.
men. You do, but very few. But a lot of the ladies that come, like they'll be chatting, and you'll hear somebody say, "Oh, this is so relaxing. Oh, this is so therapeutic," and that just think, right, okay, job done. It doesn't matter what the picture looks like, because that for me is one of the biggest parts of it. And actually, comparison, that's another thing, because
Mm.
every single workshop without fail, I get people going, "Oh, I don't like mine. Yours is better than mine." And it's like, no, they're different, but they should be all different, because we all interpret things in different ways. And I think that's the other thing that can really put people off having a go, because they see what somebody else has done and immediately think, "Oh, that's so much better than I could do." But then somebody would look at theirs and go, "Oh, I love what you've done." It's, if we all love the same thing, the world would be a very boring place. So
Oh, I say that all the time because in my years of teaching secondary art students, that was always the case. There was always going to be comparing themselves against other people. And I used to say to them, I freely admit, even I still do that as an artist. I
yeah,
see things every day. We're bombarded by social media, which we all know is the bane of our life, but it is part of our new world. And I compare myself to other people. And I have nosedives. A couple of weeks ago, I was kind of having a bit of a low point about my art. And I said to my dad, maybe I'm just not good enough. And he was like, well, I'm biased because I think your art is brilliant. He said, but
I,
maybe that's just because your mental health about your art at the moment is struggling, which
yeah,
is absolutely right. And I'm a hypocrite because I say to the people that I teach and even the young people that I still come across when I'm supply teaching, like, you are good enough, it is great, and your work is brilliant because it's different to theirs, and that's
yeah,
what's really great about it. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think I'd like to iron it out, but I think it'll always be there. And if we can just encourage people to embrace, I often say, the process. So for me as an artist, sometimes the outcome may not be what I really want it to be. But if I recognize the benefit of the process, I really get, like you do, I get really focused in, and I'm really, if I'm lino cutting, I'm carving and really enjoying the process. Or if I'm pencil crayon drawing, I'm enjoying the mark making. Um, and it's that's really beneficial, even more so
exactly.
than the end point and selling your work, which we
Yeah.
all like to do. But
Well, some of the ladies on my workshops, they laugh at me because if I don't say it, because without fail, every single class I'll say, just trust the process and enjoy the process. And it is trusting the process, because I always say that starting any painting or drawing is a bit like building a house. The foundations are never pretty, and you have to keep going and build it up and build it up until you actually get to that stage at the very end where it starts to become and everything comes together. And I think so many people sort of start off pictures with the foundation stages, look at it and go, "Oh, this will never be any good. I can't do this." And that's when they walk away and put it down. So to facilitate that space where we can give that encouragement and actually say, "No, you're on, this is part of the process.
yeah,
This is exactly where you should be at. And this is exactly how this piece works." And keep going and trust it. And by the end, when everybody looks at what they've done, they're blown away that they can create something that's so beautiful in such a short space of time. And that feeling is like, it's not like I told you so, but it's like, when I first started, I wanted to bottle that feeling, and I feel like I'm releasing everything out that bottle and sharing it with people every time somebody suddenly realizes, I can draw, I can paint, I've created something quite fantastic in such a short space of time. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
the confidence to just keep going, and it's practice and patience, a lot of it as well,
Yeah,
which I used to teach the guitar, and a lot of people used to pick it up and expect to play like Eric Clapton straight away, and it just doesn't happen. It's like anything in life, you have to practice to actually hone your skills and get better at it. So I think, you know, by having people like yourself and like me with my workshops, we can give people that space, that safe space where they're not going to, there's no criticism, there's no judgment. You know, they could come and explore, and actually the pieces that don't work out are probably the ones that you learn the most.
Yeah, definitely. Even for us as
Oh,
artists.
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny because I talk about it in a very similar way, even when I'm with young people at school, and they'll just say they'll give up, and that's not just in art, because you know that I cover for all sorts of subjects,
Yeah.
and they'll give up quite quickly. And often, if I've got a group of boys, I'll say, "But I bet you play football, and I bet the first time you kicked a ball, it didn't go in the direction you wanted it to go in," because it's like that with everything that we do in life. We've got to continue to practice it to be better. Um, and even as an artist, I still feel like I'm finding, where I'm going, and things change, and it's all adaptive. And I know you kind of mentioned when you sent me some of your questions, like where do you see it going? And I've had a couple of blips in the past couple of years that I've been doing it, and I still feel like I'm trying to find where my art is going. At the moment, I still love drawing the animals. The animals is the key for me. I
Yeah.
love animals. They're a big part of my love of the world around us. But I'm trying at the moment to try and get a little bit more character into my illustrations. Because that's something I find. So when I look at an animal, I believe that the donkey's chatting or looking at
I
me,
love that.
inquisitively, whatever it might be. And I'm really trying to kind of develop that a bit more in my work at the moment. So that's kind of a bit of an aim for this year, in and amongst some other things.
And
Um,
stunning. I mean, the ones, you know, you share them on your Instagram, and at the end, I'll get you to give the links, and I'll put them in the notes underneath so people can come and find you.
yeah,
But
yeah,
your drawings are absolutely amazing, and they have got so much character to them. But I agree. I think we, as artists, we go through stages that, you know, we're going along really well where everything's working, and all of a sudden we do hit that blip, and we sort of like feel a little bit lost somehow
mm,
and not quite know which direction. It's almost like you get to a crossroads and you just really don't know which direction to go in. And I've been the same with mine. So sometimes I'll have a painting on the go, I'll have a colour pencil drawing on the go, I'll have two or three different projects. I've got my art journal in as well, because then I can dip in and out of things until I sort of like
mm,
just give myself that space to breathe. And
yeah.
sometimes when you do that, then you find yourself. And you've recently, because I remember seeing on your Instagram page, because you've climbed Kilimanjaro, haven't you, recently? And what your sketches, oh my goodness, you're like Dora the Explorer. I see Lou pop up all over the place in these amazing places with a sketchbook and sketching on mountainsides and all sorts. And that's really inspiring for me. You know, I just think it's incredible what you're doing.
So it's interesting you mentioning that, because that is a big thing on my kind of. I'm rubbish at giving myself goals because I worry about not achieving them, which is terrible because, again, we're kind of openly talking about how we deal with life as a creative person. And there'll be people listening that probably do exactly the same thing. If I give myself a goal, then what if I don't achieve it? And I'm terrible for that. But I have tried this year, and one of them is to really embrace that. As you know, I'm out hiking a lot, and often in the last year, I noticed that when I was out hiking, I was working, which is fine, and that's my prime job, is looking after the clients and the young people that I've got out on a mountain. But I do have downtime where I'm waiting for a group to arrive, and I want to be doing more sketching outside
Yeah.
because it's something I really, really enjoy doing. I'm not the most, I'm a brilliant person at sketching outside, and again, that's something I'm finding is the materials I want to use and how I capture a scene. But it really is helpful to me. I trekked up. Cadridorus last year, and and I'm a mountain leader, but I found it quite difficult. It was quite a tough climb. And I was just romping on most of the day. And then when I was coming down the other side of the mountain, I took a couple of little slips and I got really frustrated about how I felt. And I thought, just stop a minute. And I sat down and I got my sketchbook out of my bag and I sat and drew just a pen drawing of the mountain. And straight away, I felt totally different about that day, and
Yeah.
actually felt I've just walked all over that mountain and not really taken that much notice of it. I was too busy navigating. I was too busy thinking about where my feet were going. Sitting and actually looking at that mountain, I saw parts of that mountain that I'd probably glanced at that day that I'd never taken any notice of. And immediately it calmed me down and made me feel so much better about the day. And that's a big thing for me. So one of this goal of doing more of this is that I'm hopefully going to put it into a blog. And I'd like to kind of put that onto my website where I've got like a blog of where I've been and not necessarily videos, but photographs and descriptions,
Yeah.
how I went about whatever day it was that I was doing these treks. When I
And
did Kilimanjaro, I was really wanted to do more than I did, but at the high altitude, to be quite
yeah,
frank, after day 4, I just wanted to get into camp and chill out for a couple of hours and eat plenty and go to sleep, because that's how it was. But so I wanted to draw more than I did, but it's
but the nice thing is as well for me saying that, and that's actually brought a memory back that I had as well when we went to Mull. We did a boat trip to the island of Stafford and Lunga. And when we got to Stafford, which is where Fingal's Cave is, and the boat took us into the cave part way, and they played the music from Fingal's Cave, they dropped us on the island, and you could either go up to the top of the cliff, or you could walk along like a very narrow ledge to go into Fingal's Cave. Well, I'm not like you. I'm not good with heights. I'm not good with sheer drops. And I was like going, oh my gosh, up or across, I don't fancy either. So everybody went, and the boat went, and I literally just sat on a rock. It was like I'd got the whole island to myself, and I've got my rucksack with my I've got some Inktense pencils I take out to sketch with.
mm,
And I literally sat on this rock, watching the sea, listening to the sea, listening to the oyster catchers, and I sat and sketched. And I could have been anywhere, and I'd never felt so chilled in all my life. It was just lovely. And then all of a sudden, another boat came in. These people were getting off. I was going, but this is my quiet space.
yeah.
And everybody came back and it was shattered. But I've got that picture, and that every time I look at it, it takes me straight back to that moment, and the feelings that I had when I was painting, when I was drawing it, come straight back, and it's instantly calming just by even looking at that picture and revisiting it, because it takes you back to those emotions of being Jeff at the time. So
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a really big thing for me, that is being in the places that I go to, and the photographs are brilliant. And but it is different. It is totally different having a drawing, regardless of what it comes out like. You engage. I just think you see more. You see so much more than just clicking a button on a camera. And
yeah,
both of us do bits of photography, so we're both used to doing that. But yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile process. Even if you don't share it with anybody, it's such a nice thing to just sit and draw a view, or even just some flowers in the garden or
yeah.
whatever it is really
It's
important.
like sketching and jotting notes down next to it. So
Yeah.
about how it made you feel, or you know, put the date, put the time on it, and what was the weather like? How was it warm? Was it just everything down? And I mean, this is why I do the art journaling, because it's a fantastic
Mm.
place to do that, where you can just store those emotions and feelings. And there's times when, if you're having a bit of a rough time, you can go back, you can flick back through and think, do you know what? No, that was really good, and I enjoyed doing that. Let's get that sketchbook and go out again. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, that's absolutely fascinating. So I think you've more or less answered all of the questions that I had. You've summed it up really, really nicely.
You did mention when you messaged me with the questions about how it might open doors in the
Yeah,
future. Um, so when I started as an artist, I just thought that I'd sell some work at markets, which I still do, and that I do artisan markets at various different
well, that's how
points.
we met, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it is how we met. Yeah, And that's what I kind of thought I'd be doing. And then I set up a website, and I have sold a few things off my website. That's one of my kind of targets at the moment, is to kind of ramp that up a little bit more. But I'm taking part in an exhibition in July, which is a big thing for me. So at Indigo Crow in Lincoln, there's 3 of us taking part in an exhibition that's nature based. So it's going to be called Elements of Nature. And we're 3 quite different in style in terms of being an artist. But yeah, so I'm ramping up trying to create things ready for that.
Fantastic.
But then you constantly think, oh, what if that gets sold, or what, but I mean, I create prints like you do, and
Yeah,
other products and things anyway. So that's a big thing for me. And I never thought I'd take part in what we call an exhibition. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. For me, that's quite a significant thing, I think.
exactly. It's huge.
Yeah, and I can remember I wrote down on my notes about where you asked me about where the creativity came from. And again, when I was much younger, my parents were more than happy for me to drag them in a little gallery when we were on holiday. The tiny little galleries that you get in these nice little villages and coastal resorts. And I'd always be saying, can we go and have a look at this art? And again, my mum used to say, well, you might be in one of these one day. And I was just thought, no, I'll never be. I just draw and paint. I won't be in an exhibition. So it is quite a big thing. It's a small exhibition, but it's quite a big thing that I'm like, oh, I've got to get cracking on doing some stuff for that.
But I think
But
we're all
it's
the same. I think we all have doubts. We all have the same doubts, no
mm,
matter how much artwork you've sold in the past, or whatever you've done. We all have the same doubts and fears as we go through. And it is
yeah,
about just thinking, do you know what? It's just being your authentic self, which you're so lovely, and you really are, which is so nice. And I think sometimes you mentioned about goals, and I kind of pull back from goals a little bit, because I kind of think it's a bit like life. We can be focused on the goal, and you actually then miss all of the other opportunities and things that come up on along the way, because you're so focused to getting to that goal. And now I really just, like we said about enjoying the process, enjoying the journey, and seeing where it takes you, and making connections and the opportunities that come up. And things, that I've been asked to do that I wouldn't, 6, 7 years ago, when I first started this journey, if somebody had said to me, you're going to be doing this, I'd come, there's no way will I be doing that. I'm not good enough to do that. And even now, I have to pinch myself sometimes and sort of think, how did I actually get here?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's just, and so it's about celebrating each of those, successes on the way, and those each small step, and like an exhibition's fantastic and definitely something to be celebrated. And just think how proud you are, that you've achieved that. Because I know, from just a couple of years ago, to think from where you were then to now, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And as you know, that's partly why I had a career change, because I wanted to take opportunities. I was well aware that when I was working full time, that there were opportunities there, but I couldn't always take them.
Yeah,
And that's enabled me to take those different opportunities, which is a real life. You think about when I was tiny, making those things out of cardboard boxes or whatever it is, it is quite a big journey. Um,
it's
but
it,
it's always been there. It's really interesting that I was chatting to a young person the other day about their choices for their GCSEs, and they said, "How did you choose yours, miss?" And I said, "Well, it was quite straightforward, really, because I only ever wanted to do art, and I was good at art, and that's why I did art." So it wasn't a really difficult decision for me. Whereas, I appreciate for some it is a bit more difficult. So it's always been there.
yeah. But what I'm finding at the moment, I'm finding that there's a lot of people coming to the workshops that haven't picked a pencil or a brush up for like 30, 40, 50 years in some cases.
Yeah,
um, all that time, and they've got this hidden talent they never knew was there. And
yeah,
people have said, I wish I'd done this sooner. I so wish I'd done this sooner. And it's
yeah.
why I say to people, it's never too late to learn. It doesn't matter
Oh,
what
absolutely.
you are, it is never too late to start and pick up a pencil. So if you had to give a message to somebody who's like really not confident in their artistic ability, what would you say to them?
I'd say that everybody can find something within a creative outlet. I mean, like you've talked about playing the guitar, it doesn't have to be kind of music art
No,
based as we think of. But I honestly believe that if you give it a go. It might be that I had a lady on Sunday that said, "Oh, we've used." I gave them lots of things you could use, oil pastel, whatever you wanted to do, and she picked up some watercolors, and she said, "I haven't used watercolors for 40 years, and I've really enjoyed this, and I'm going to dig them out at home, and I'm going to go away and try some more watercolor." So it just goes to show, it might be pen, it might be pencil, it might be watercolor. There's so many options for people to be creative nowadays that I believe people can find something. And if you, like you said, the message is enjoy the process, not worry or be obsessive about what the outcome is.
absolutely. And I think before we finish, that's one nice thing about attending the workshops, is because if you're not quite sure which media you're going to sort of like be drawn to, go and try lots of different things. Go and try like the lino printing, the sketch, you know, the green sketching, the painting, the watercolors, the acrylics, whatever it might be, because you don't know until you try it which you're really going to take to. And you know, materials can be expensive, so you don't really want to be going out buying lots of materials and then thinking, oh, I don't actually get on with it, I don't know how to use it, you know. So the workshops are a really lovely introduction, to ease people in to sort of think, actually, no, I could really get into doing the lino printing or the watercolors or whatever it might be. They're a really good option.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting this afternoon. It's been so lovely to catch up. I feel like I've not seen you for ages. I've seen you at mountains on your posts and things. I feel like I've not seen you for ages to talk to. So it's been really nice, and it's lovely that you're able to share your journey as well and your insights, because I think it's the more people that, you know, we can inspire, and that's the idea behind the podcast. And this is why I called it the Creative Woman Within, because like you said, it's not just about art. So some people say to me, I do pottery or knit or whatever, music, it's all being creative, and it all comes under the same umbrella. So, but it all has ultimately the same benefits. So I think, you know, the more people that we can talk to and that can come onto the podcast and we can share stories, it makes you realize you're not alone on this journey, and it's never too late to start. And you don't have to do it as a professional, you know, just picking it up as a hobby is absolutely fine, because you will still get the same rewards and the, you know, the same sense of satisfaction from doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you ever so much. And
Thanks for having me.
so what I'll do, I'll get all of your details, your Instagram and your Facebook and everything, and then I'll put the details underneath in the comments so people can come and find you. So do you want to just tell people where they can find you and what your name is for your
Yeah,
art?
yeah. So not as casual as Lou, but L Earnshaw Artist is the name of my website. I'm also on Facebook as L Earnshaw Artist, and also on Instagram as L Earnshaw Artist. So it's the same on all three: website, Facebook, and Instagram.
That's perfect. Makes it really easy, easy to find you. So thank you ever so much, and thank you everybody for watching and for listening. And I shall see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.